My great-grandfather, Don Hutson, had an interesting life story. He was humble and likely wouldn't watch this documentary if I hadn't made it. Sadly, he passed away June 26, 1997, and therefore the information will be from what I could find and my family and I. I will lean towards using modern film when it helps give perspective, since film of him was lost in a house fire before it could be digitized. Without further ado, my attempt to tell the life of Don Hutson. Don Hutson was born January 31, 1913 in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, a city of about 15,000 at the time. His parents were not rich, nor descendants of actors or professional athletes. Although he lived in a small town and had 3 brothers, he did not play sports until high school and never went on to receive an academic scholarship. Rather, Don Hutson was a Boy Scout. In fact, he said playing with snakes is how he developed his quickness. Then, in the late 1920s, he began attending Pine Bluff High School. At Pine Bluff High School, he played sports for the first time, including basketball and baseball. Then, during his senior year, he started playing American football, simultaneously with the other 2 sports. Key to Hutson's future success was his long-term friend, Bear Bryant. Bear got his name from wrestling a captive bear at a carnival as a 13-year-old. Although also from Arkansas and born in 1913, Bear played football for a different high school than Hutson. Then, as word of Hutson's quickness and athleticism spread, Bear, as any 1920 high school boy would do, hitchhiked to watch him play. At one of Hutson's games, Bear saw him catch 5 touchdown passes. After Hutson displayed athleticism in high school, the boy from the small town of Pine Bluff received a partial baseball scholarship to the University of Alabama. He accepted and became roommates with friend and Alabama football player Bear Bryant. One night during college, Bear and Hutson were on a double-blind date together, in which they found each other's dates more interesting. They then switched dates halfway through the evening, and both ended up marrying the women they switched to, Hutson with Julia and Bear with Mary. Outside of his social life, Hutson also thrived, becoming a professional baseball prospect. It seemed as if all was perfect, but then Hutson made a change. Hutson took the risk and dropped baseball to join Alabama's elite football team, all without a football scholarship nor more than 1 year of football experience. In fact, he, quote, would rather play basketball, end quote, or baseball than football. Additionally, not only would his baseball skills not translate to football, but physically he was not suited for football either. Hutson, skinny 6'1" frame, made playing a pass-catching position, today called wide receiver, his best option. Sadly, the position was undeveloped and in low demand. Even when compared to players of his height and position, like modern-day wide receiver A.J. Brown, Hutson was still considered skinny. He was 6'1", but only 160 pounds, which is 66 pounds lighter than example A.J. Brown. Switching to a sport mid-career in which you are undersized, have less experience, and no scholarship is unheard of. Most people would not have switched, but Hutson was not most people. Rather than failing as doubters expected, Hutson defied expectations, becoming known as the Alabama Antelope, for his speed, skinny frame, and long legs.
Here's Don Hutson, once the pride of Alabama, one of the fastest men in football.
In his 3rd season of football in his life, 2nd season in college, he defeated Stanford at the Rose Bowl to win the 1934 college football national title. Hutson had legendary teammates like Bear, and always attributed his football success to
a team, not just one player.
That same year, he ran track for Alabama, running the 100-yard dash in 9.7 seconds. That is equivalent to running the 40-yard dash in 4.43 seconds, an elite time for football players even today. After graduation, Hutson was still considered a baseball prospect and wanted to play for Major League Baseball's Brooklyn Dodgers. But he was also wanted by the National Football League's Green Bay Packers. This created an issue, as in 1934, rather than having a draft, players were simply provided with contract offers via mail. Therefore, NFL Commissioner Joseph Carr decided whichever team's offer letter arrived to Hutson first would win the rights to sign him. Although Hutson preferred baseball, it was not his choice. With just an 11-minute gap between letter arrivals that would change the franchise's histories forever, the National Football League's Green Bay Packers letter arrived first. Not only was the Packers' contract offer massive for the time, but Hutson was still doubted by experts for his weight, as he'd tell you himself.
There was a fellow in Green Bay that had a radio network. This was before television, and he used to come on about 12 o'clock, and we'd be in the locker room and everybody would listen because he's critical of Lambeau. And this time he spent his entire 30-minute program telling what a lousy deal he made in signing Don Hutson. Played the Bears. It was an opening game. On the first play, I caught a pass for 80 yards for a touchdown, and that was the last we heard about this guy on the radio for a while.
Early Lambeau, coach of the Packers at the time, teamed up Hutson with quarterback Arnie Herber and pass catcher Johnny Blood McNally, the quote, wild Irishman, end quote. Lambeau's goal was to make a passing attack with the three, rather than simply running the ball like was standard at the time. With Lambeau and his teammates, Hutson invented passing strategies that made football more suited for lightweight pass catchers as himself, and changed the game forever. The strategies they devised helped them win 3 championships and are still used in the NFL today. Hutson went on to spend all 13 of his years in the NFL with the Green Bay Packers, 11 as a player and 2 as an assistant coach. While in the NFL, he was a 9-time All-Pro, 2-time Most Valuable Player, and held 18 records before retirement in 1945, amongst other stats.
My rookie year, I'll never forget getting ready for this guy called Don Hutson. Some runners, receivers, have strides that are harder to judge as far as pace goes. And he sort of ran skating along. And then he gave me a little extra speed, a little extra move. And while he was running in there for touchdown land, I started to jog to the bench because I knew I was going to end up right there.
Today, he is considered by the Top 100 NFL Greatest Player Series the 9th greatest player of all time, and a pioneer who will forever change the game, rather than listening to his doubters.
Don Hutson is the most dominant single player at his position of any in NFL history.
Although he was from a small town, not rich growing up, or considered suited for football, he succeeded. His fame at the time helped him become the successful owner of car dealerships and bowling alleys after the NFL.
But he had a bit of a wit about him, and it was a kind of a canned line, but it always worked for him. When somebody asked him in his advancing years, he was probably 70 or so, and he said, with these kids catching all these passes today, and the forward pass being such a weapon, if you were playing today, how many passes do you think you'd catch? And he said, well, probably 50. And I said, really, just 50? Well, I am 70 years old.
During retirement, he played golf and relaxed with friends in a country club community in Southern California. He enjoyed socializing, playing cards, and was happy to be known as Just Don, the boy from the small town of Pine Bluff.
Cover boy looks made Hutson irresistible to Madison Avenue. But in Green Bay, most were drawn to his everyman personality.